I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining me on this. I really appreciate it.
No worries. You know, I'm a real Josh Fedie fan. A JFF. Oh, my goodness. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for just over 3 years, Dan.
Okay. And where did we meet?
We met when I was working at a HubSpot partner agency. I went through your Lion boot camp training for HubSpot sales training.
That's right. And then did I come to Minneapolis and we meet face-to-face?
We met face-to-face in Minneapolis one time, and then we also met face-to-face at Inbound when I pitched you the concept of what is now my current business.
No, I remember. We sat in those very comfy chairs over on the side where they had nice drinks.
We didn't sit in comfy chairs. No, you had me sit in an uncomfortable bench, but there were comfy chairs there. There definitely were. But you put me in the hot seat. That's what you did.
Hey, that's horrible, man. We're not starting this podcast off in the right fashion. Everybody's going to hang up. They're like, if you treat Josh like that, screw you, Tyre. Forget about it.
No, we're not even recording yet. Don't worry. I mean, I'm recording, but I don't need to release this, but I probably will. But I've given you credit where credit is due so many times, Dan. I have probably brought you up, I don't know, at least 7 times on previous episodes. And I've told you to your face before. It was honestly going through the training with you and meeting with you personally and telling you the idea of what I wanted to build that gave me all the validation I needed that I had to build this product. And I never looked back. I really didn't. After our conversation in Boston for Inbound, I jumped on a plane and immediately started calling people to become potential investors. I did not stop until I had money in the bank, and I have not looked back since. And you've been a tremendous just advisor for me, just somebody that I've been able to lean on with various questions throughout this entire journey. I give you all the credit in the world, man. Honestly, in my list, it's the truth. In my list of the top 5 most important people that have come into my life over the last 5 years of my life, you are in the top 5, buddy. No joke.
Oh, that is tremendous. Thank you for your kind words. Sounds like you are a Dan Tyre fan as well as me being a Josh Fedie fan. So
I'm a big Dan Tyre fan.
You're DTF and I'm a JFF.
That's right. That's what we're doing. So I know you're a busy man. I don't want this to take up too much of your day. We can just get going right into this. I am going to real quick lead you in, but I don't like to give too much of a pitch about who people are. I like to just give you the floor to introduce yourself and let people know who you are and why you're here. I got multiple cameras going in this room. You know how I do these things. So
it's totally professional, man. I feel like I'm on Larry King. You got the big microphone going on there. You got the big, deep voice. You are like a step above the typical podcast producer and interviewer I usually work with.
Whoa. Well, in full transparency, I did boost the bass response a little bit on my microphone so that I could have a little bit more of that Barry White sweetness that people are looking for.
You're going to break out into a few bars? Let's go. Your favorite Barry.
We'll see that?
I've never had a podcast interviewer sing for me in the first 5 minutes. That's awesome. Okay.
I tried it once on another podcast. It didn't go over so well. So we're going to let that one do.
I'll sing to partners. I'll sing to customers, right? After 30 seconds, you'll be okay, enough. That's funny. But it's a great way to make people smile and giggle and laugh. And that's what it's all about.
There you go. That's Sales 101. All right, here we go. We're going to get into it here.
Go.
Welcome to the Buyer Enablement Podcast. I'm Josh Fedie, your host. Today, I have somebody joining me that you have heard this name dropped on previous episodes at a minimum 6 times, at a minimum. And if you've listened to some of the other content I've put out over the years, you've heard this name so many times that you're like, okay, enough already. Who is this person? We need to meet this person. And I'm not kidding. I am beyond thrilled. I am over the moon thrilled to be able to introduce you to this next guest. This person has been instrumental in my life specifically over the last 3.5 years while I was building the business that I was building. He has given me advice. He has given me encouragement. He has given me tough love when I needed it. He has given me all of those things freely. And you'll find out the more you get to know him, that's just the kind of guy he is. So, man, I can't believe I'm saying this. Dan Tyre, Welcome to the Buyer Enablement Podcast, buddy. Thank you for joining me.
No worries. Happy to be here. We were saying this in the briefing notes. I'm a JFF, right? I'm a Josh Fedie fan, and we've known each other for 3 years. We've met in multiple locations. You've been a great part of the inbound revolution, right? You're a great entrepreneur. I'm super excited about the scale of your business and happy to explain a few of the ways in which we help companies scale in 2021.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So anybody listening to this episode, I'm sure that they're going to scramble over to Dan Tyre's LinkedIn profile. It's Tyre, and you're going to see a lot of great things on there. That's the footnotes, right? That's your resume right there. But who is Dan? What are you working on today? Like, what is your focus right now? Let's get into your head a little bit.
All right. So I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I've been married for 31 years, 30 great ones and one mediocre one, which my beautiful wife, Amy, she's the smart Tyre. If you ever meet me, ask to meet my wife because she's the person who's coordinating everything, doing all the heavy lifting, doing all the child rearing, all that kind of stuff. Right. I've done 5 startups in the last 42 years. My first startup went to $1.5 billion, which was super fun and exciting. I started as a salesperson and then went all over the United States as a turnaround expert, helping underperforming locations hit their sales number and become profitable. Then I started an agency in 1993 in my dining room and grew it to $30 million US, 6 locations across North America, almost 300 employees. That was super fun. My third startup went bankrupt, which taught me business planning and humility. It was hard. It was excruciating, actually. My beautiful wife supported me 100% through the process. And I learned how to take a company and put it into receivership, which after you've done it once, is actually a pretty solid skill to understand. I probably helped several dozen companies who are like, what do I do? I ran out of money. Go into chapter 7 or chapter 11 in the subsequent years. My fourth startup got bought out by Microsoft, which was super fun and exciting. And my boss there was Brian Halligan. He went to MIT when Microsoft bought Groove. I worked for Microsoft for a year, which was an unbelievable experience. And then when they started HubSpot, HUBS on the New York Stock Exchange, HubSpot, I was employee number 6. So it's just a handful of folks. I worked for our first vice president of sales, Mark Roberge, and I'm still employed by HubSpot. I got 5 jobs because 4 is not enough. And I love working with the inbound community. Right. Over the last, 5 or 6 years, I've written a book called The Inbound Organization. You can get it on Amazon or you can get it www.inboundorganization.com. Thank you very much, Josh. I'm a speaker. Last year, it turns out, Josh, I did 85 public presentations last year. 85.
Wow.
I know. I feel like Bruce Springsteen. But I never left my dining room. It turns out the little Dan Tyre Zoom show is almost as good as the live one. Right. My joke, they're all the same jokes, right? If you've heard my podcasts before, you're like, okay, I've heard that before, which is true. Dan Sally made me do that. He's like, no, just do your greatest hits. Tell everybody the best jokes because that's what they want to hear. And I was in Toronto, Amsterdam. I was in Mexico City. I was in Copenhagen, all over the world as an ambassador to HubSpot, the Inbound Revolution. I'm a big time blogger. Have you ever read any of my blog stuff?
I have read some of your, of course I've read some of your blogs. Are you kidding me?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty prolific. I work with Lestranda Alford and Jay Fuchs and Rebecca. And I have probably, 200 blog articles in the HubSpot sales blog, which I started with Leslie Yee in 2014 and continue to publish the changes of what an inbound sales organization needs to do, how individual reps need to look at their jobs, how managers need to manage directors and executives, how they need to go. I work 12 days a year for HubSpot for startups. I run office hours where I set my agenda in the public domain and people sign up like for 30 or 50 minutes and I try to get them unstuck. I have a mentor program at dantyre.com. I have 33 people I mentor directly and there's about 200 people. I went out and got a handful of my friends to do it as well. And our goal is to create thousands of young entrepreneurial mentors that will help people scale. And that's a pretty big agenda. I got 2 kids. They're both launched. My beautiful daughter, Sally, is in Boston, and she's tracking COVID, socially responsible, and is a shining light in the universe. And my son, Eli's in Berkeley, trying to save the world from artificial intelligence.
I think that you need more things happening in your life, Dan.
I know.
think that there's room
I can't fit anything else, right? Sorry, I book like 4 months in advance. My mission statement is to do the most good for the universe, right? I love helping people. And being a person of means in the United States, having had successful entrepreneur scale-ups, having been in the what we call mud in the slime, right? It's not like I just sat in an office and watched other people did it. I picked up the phone. I cold called for HubSpot. Don't tell anybody. In 2007, we didn't have any choice. We didn't even have inbound leads. But I just did a Facebook Live with David Meerman Scott, who has a new book out called Fanocracy and has been an advisor to HubSpot. And we were reliving the glory days, the old days. Actually, right now is the glory days. But he jumped into the Antarctic Ocean with a HubSpot hat on. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And he wrote the new rules of PR, and he's been a great he's been a great author, supporter, advisor for the company for a long time.
It's awesome. So anybody that was listening in there, you heard a book mentioned. I'll hold it up here to my camera. This is Inbound Organization. Let's let that come into focus here. You'll remember that book because our first guest was Todd Hockenberry, who you call the Todd Father, right?
Father, yeah. First of all, he's the greatest co-author in the history of books. Second of all, it was a great writing experience because number one, writing a book is hard, hundreds of hours. But I come from a tech background. And Todd was always good saying, Dan, that's not really the way the world works. I'm like, no, that's how we do it at HubSpot. He's going, that's great. No one does it that way. So it was a great balance, right? And if you go to www.inboundorganization.com, the book still sells thousands of copies a year. You can get it on Amazon. You can get bulk orders on Inbound Organization. And just like we espouse in the book, right, we give away tons of free stuff. Right. We talk about your M spot, which is mission driven, way to get everybody in your organization aligned. We have an assessment to determine how quickly or how slowly and what you need to do to become an inbound organization. We have there's 24 episodes of a podcast, and there's just tons of stuff that's there that can definitely help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, you unpacked so many things right there. And one of the things that I really pick up on because it's so true about you. I remember the first time I saw you speak, it was in Minneapolis. You came to an event. And the third slide in on your presentation, I believe, it was very close to the beginning, was the list of the companies that you have either invested in or are an active advisor with. And this is a huge list.
There's like dozens of them now. I think I have 26 angel investments now. I tend to focus on women, entrepreneurs, and people of color. Currently raising for a transportation company in Uganda, Andrew Carl, who's got an app that helps professional women get to work and on a daily basis. We take that for granted in the United States. In Uganda, that's hard. A fertility company. My buddy, Go Stork is the name of the company, right? And it's amazing. It's a fertility marketplace where intended parents can find, compare, and connect with top fertility providers, and they want to bring transparency to the fertility industry. And I didn't know anything about surrogacy until the CEO explained to me. He's an Israeli in the United States, and he's like, "No, I went through this. It's hard. It's expensive. Somebody's got to figure this out." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I want to be part of that journey." So in 3 years of hard work, he's got a website up, GoStork.com, right? Okay. And it's amazing. Right. And then Zenovate is my friend Amelia Wilcox. She's a massage therapist. Right. Oh, listen to this pivot. This lady is amazing. Right. She's a massage therapist. Do you like your back being rubbed?
I do. Who doesn't?
Some people don't. Some people don't like to be touched. I love it.
I love it.
I know. Me too. They come in with these big purple chairs and they rub your back. Right. And people went nuts. They have all the statistics of tying it to retention, to employee happiness. You ever want to score well on your employee NPS, you take that as soon as you've gotten a massage, right? It's like, it'll go through the roof. Amazing, right? Except in February of 2020, right? We're like, ooh, what's this like global pandemic thing? We made Amelia forecast what would happen if she had a reduction of 90% of revenue, right, in 2020. Guess what? 100% was wiped out. You can't, even if you dress in a hazmat suit and got all kinds of like masks and stuff like that, you can't give massages in the United States. The infection rates are just too high. Amelia, right, said, spent 8 years building this business. She goes, I don't care. I'm not going out of business. She got a little PPP money. Thank you very much, federal government. She recruited some tech folks. She started a wellness company called Zenovate, www.zenovate, Zenovate.com, right? And it's a wellness app where you can go get yoga, you can get mental health counseling, you can get wellness stuff, and it's amazing. And in 4 months, she's blowing out her numbers. She's already got almost $20,000 of MRR, right? She is scaling, and it's the greatest pivot ever. First of all, a strong woman. Whenever she speaks, she wears these red shoes that, like, I thought they're amazing, right? Second of all, right, getting it done. Get it done with social responsibility, which is the kind of emphasis that I like to do in my socially responsible angel investing in these days.
I love that. I was recently on a podcast called Selling During Crisis. And one of the things that I said was that salespeople, we're always in crisis, right? I mean, let's not minimize the fact that every month we walk in to the leaderboard and we're seeing somebody ahead of us and we're seeing our numbers not being hit, and we find a way to get through it. And those are exactly the kind of stories that I love to hear, Dan. I love hearing about people that are not willing to just take it, right? That are just, look, I get it. My business was all around being that close to someone that I literally had to touch them. I could just sit back and say, well, I guess I can't do that anymore and just stop. But instead, she innovated. It's absolutely incredible. And this is exactly what people need to do.
So much more intense than that. Her whole business, right, has $6 million in revenue, stopped. Right. She has 1,200 employees, not like Uber where they're like contractors. Right. We paid them and we're in every state. So they were part-time workers, but we made sure that we treated them like human beings and did the right thing. And it was dire. I'm on the board of directors. I'm like, this is going to be tough. She's like, I don't care. So much grit. Right. It makes my teeth hurt. Unbelievable. Yeah. And she just willed, right. She have a strong tech background, and she willed a company that's now scaling like a weed. Turns out lots of people need this type of wellness support. And then Eran Amir is the name of the CEO of GoScore. And the same thing. He's a man who used surrogacy to start his family. And it's expensive. And he's like, I got to fix this. And I'm like, well, how are you going to do that? I'm going to set up a website so that if people want to explore surrogacy, boom, they can do it. And I love helping those people. And they're both powerful companies. They're both involved in raising capital so they can continue to scale, and happy to help. Yeah,
it's absolutely amazing.
I think over the last 5 years, Josh, I've helped companies raise about $50 million. Right. And now I got this list of all these people that I call, and they say, Tyre, if you've invested and you're advising, right, I'm in. Right. And I've in a few short years, I've had some companies that have successfully cashed out. So I never really did it for the money. I did it because it's super fun. And I love backing entrepreneurs as they scale.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And honestly, I probably should have had you on my other podcast, The Founder's Mentality, to talk more about startups, because you are absolutely a wealth of knowledge there. I've leaned on you for support in my startup in so many different ways. Many times it's specific around sales as well. A lot of, obviously, your role at HubSpot, sales is your role. That is what you're passionate about. That's what you talk about a lot. I'm curious, like right now, what do you think the state of B2B sales is? Like, what's the state of the state here? What is the state of B2B sales?
It's great. People kind of, I do spend a lot of time in sales and marketing. I always ask that from the stage. Do you think I'm a salesperson or a marketing person? People who've read some of my stuff say you're a schmarketing person. Say that, Josh.
Smarketing. I know it's supposed to be schmarketing. Yes, I know.
The back of your throat. Like you're a Brooklyn grandma. You got to do it. Right. It's not smart marketing. It's sales and marketing pushed together. I invented that term in 2007. And I do both. in the state of sales and marketing, B2B sales is awesome. It requires different skills. There are different efforts. There's a different playbook, like everything else in 2021. But if you can learn those skills, perform at a high level, it's incredibly fun, exciting, it's lucrative, it's rewarding. It is different, right? And like if you're trying to learn how to be a good B2B salesperson, you either have to find a great company who will teach you, or you do a lot of individual research. But the number one suggestion that I always make is go to Hubspot Academy. Josh, you know Hubspot Academy, right?
Yes, I do.
And take the inbound sales certification class. It's 2 hours, right? And it is a foundation for what is required to sell in the 21st century. And it's different. Right? The old days, sales was the land of misfit toys, right? Anybody who couldn't code or they couldn't write, they're like, okay, you're a sales guy now, right? And you could like bluff your way through it. And that's not the way it is today. In 2021, you see fewer salespeople, but they got to be good, right? In the old days, if you had a bad reputation, right? No one knew, right? People call up your boss and say, that guy, Josh, he didn't manage the process right. Your boss would hang up and say, Josh, don't do that again. And you just keep going, right? In 2021, people are all over social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram going, hey, wait a second, right? I'm not sure that was the way we thought it was going to go. And in the old days, it was buyer beware. Now it's seller beware, because you never want that type of comments out in the greater universe, right? That reflects poorly on your brand and image.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And what you're moving towards here is you're moving towards some of the strategic things that people are doing right now. I know you advise so many different sales teams. What are some of the strategic changes that you've been seeing at organizations that are really helping them?
Yeah, so it's a couple of things. Number one, it depends on what industry you're in. It depends on where you are in that industry, product market fit, and whether you're the industry leader or not. It depends on what your like sales team is, how it's performing, right? At peak productivity, and you're going to add because you figured it out, or you're just in proof of concept mode, right? And it kind of depends on the sales leadership, right? All of that is pretty important, right? But the strategic aspects that are like essential in 2021, number one, that sales and marketing alignment, right? If you do not have sales and marketing alignment where you're working closely with your counterparts on the other side of the aisle, you're at a huge competitive disadvantage. Because when you think about it, the swim lanes of sales and marketing have been blurred so much, especially recently, right? We have all the statistics of how that works. And it's just archaic. It's a holdover from last century, right? With sales in one swim lane and marketing in another. Number two, you got to lean into social selling, right? The average consumer wants to see something multiple times before they even consider the brand. And it takes a little bit of time and effort to define your brand, right? But getting the word out, getting that visibility is pretty important. I'm a big believer in the freemium model, right? I bet your listeners love the freemium model. Do you like free software, Josh?
I love giving software a free trial, of course.
I know. And do you like free checklists and free programs?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? Why do you like free stuff?
Because, well, listen, the more I can learn, the better, right? The more learnings I can cram into my day, the better. And the less money I have to spend to cram all those learnings into the day, even better, right? It can't get any better than that. So, and there's so many different ways to get those free learnings, right? And I see a lot of that. Listen, you mentioned the HubSpot Academy earlier. Yes, anyone listening, please check that out. Wealth of information. And you don't even have to be a HubSpot customer. There's so much free information that HubSpot puts out there. It's incredible to not digest that information.
There's free software. There's the website Grader. There's Make My Persona. Anybody who needs free stuff or likes free stuff, right? Just email me, dtyre@hubspot.com or dantyre@gmail.com. I'll send it all to you, right? It's all on a one page. It's designed to help entrepreneurs scale. Why? Because HubSpot has $1 billion on its balance sheet, right? We want to make sure that we're helping companies scale. That's the right thing to do. It's the socially responsible thing to do. Turns out that's a damn good business model as well, right? So the freemium, everybody has something you can give away. Everybody has expertise or a YouTube channel or ways to solve problems. You just have to think through. This is the next strategic change. Generalists are out. The riches are in the niches. Or if you're in the UK, you got to say, if you want to go to the beaches, you got to work the niches, right? And they understand what that. But in the old days, you're like, no, I work with everybody. Now you say, no. I work with $10 million SaaS companies that have at least 30 people in their sales organization that want to improve their close ratio from 10 to 15% to 40%. And what happens when you say something like that to the vice president of sales?
You get bigger deals.
Well, and you get number one, but that vice president of sales goes, oh yeah, that's me. What do you got there, Josh? Right? Yeah. And you can have a little bit of a range, but the strategic way you do it in 2021 is you figure out where you do your best work, where you get the most enjoyment, where you provide the most value. And then you mine that vein. Now, a lot of people have problems with that. They're like, no, I could work in healthcare, professional services, and manufacturing. I'm like, yeah, you can. But there's one place that you understand the seasonality. Todd Hockenberry, the Todd father, when he walks in, he does industrial and manufacturing. When he walks, he's got 3 patents. He understands exactly what it's like for supply chain. You spend 10 minutes with Todd and you're like, okay, this is a manufacturing guy. He roots for NASCAR. He roots for the Steelers. You can tell he's a manufacturing guy, right? And he could do healthcare, but he's grown by scaling very specifically the kind of companies that he's the best at. So that riches are in the niches, that micro focus, right? All you need for most companies is a certain number of prospects. And it's actually quicker and easier to scale in a very specific niche than it is to go through all of it, right? And so all of that is critically important when you're focusing on an industry, a vertical, a company location, a size from a strategic perspective.
It's so true. Listen, if you're in a business development role in an organization right now, listening to what Todd is saying, if you work for an organization that doesn't want to focus on a niche, if you're working for a company that's all over the place, what you need to do right now, and I've done this before in my career, is sit back and look at the case studies of what's happening in that organization. Find out where they're successful on your own and make that your own personal niche focus. You'll blow everybody away on the leaderboard without question. Just because your organization is focusing on all the different industries doesn't mean you as an individual, as a salesperson, needs to as well. So even if you're listening to this and you're not a business owner and you're listening to this advice, this applies across the board. It doesn't matter. If you are responsible for revenue at an organization, you need to set your focus on where you're going to make the maximum impact and make that what you do day in, day out. Do you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, the key is you can still be opportunistic. I think the reason why people are afraid to do it is they don't want to lose any business. And we completely understand this. The problem is, right, if you picked 100 different verticals, you could only spend 1% of your time on each one, and you kind of know it. If you pick one vertical, you're spending all your time, all your effort, all your networking, all your understanding of the vocabulary, right? So if one is too scary, just pick 2. I always like to focus on geography where you live or close. Right? It doesn't have to be like that because a lot of stuff is vertical. But if people see you at church, on the golf course, at the grocery store, they know you're there. That gives them an added level of confidence and comfort that you're there and know a little bit about them as people and their company. And then understand a little bit about their sales process, their product market fit, a little bit about their customers, a little bit about where their customers engage. And that should, by definition, give you better results over a period of time.
Nope, that's great. That's great. One thing that I wanted to ask you specifically, because of your background, specifically with HubSpot, you have been on the leading edge. HubSpot has for many, many years trying to define a new process and a new way to do business. And many of the things that you've been screaming from the mountaintops specific to sales for many, many years became even more important about 10 months ago when all of this chaos hit and COVID hit, right? And so what I'm talking about here is sales organizations, they've always had a process. Every sales organization has a process. Sometimes it's a horrible process, but there's always a process of some sort. But specific to processes, especially with some of the companies that you advise, and I mean, you work with so many HubSpot partner agencies, they all have a process as well. How has the methodology changed in sales from your perspective and in what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, so when the global pandemic first hit, I did some research because I was doing all these public speaking things. I'm like, I wonder how this is going to impact it. And there's some very interesting similarities to past global pandemics. Right. And HubSpot is very data oriented. The whole inbound methodology is centered around 6 things. Number one, it is treating people like human beings. Right. Which you wouldn't think you'd have to remind people about that in 2021, but you do. Number 2, it's helping, not selling. Right. In 2021, no one wants a pushy salesperson. Right. I hate to tell people, but in 2007, I was a little bit of a pushy guy. Right. As the first salesperson for HubSpot, I'd like, you got to make a decision this month. If I ever did that now, right, people would just ghost me. They would never talk with me. The third is that focus over general, like the riches or the niches is a very important content. Then you have to focus on the customer. I was just talking to somebody about this last week, and in the management consulting that I do, right, we'll sit down with the CEO. We'll say, all right, how is your customer engagement process? And they'll say, it's great. I'm like, do you like being in a flywheel? And they're like, I like in your funnel. They're like, oh, I like being in my funnel. I'm like, but you like to be in another person's funnel. And they're like, don't think so. I go, let's call the front desk. Let's see what happens when you call into your front desk and how prospects and customers are treated. And they sit there like this. They're like, no. And I'm like, no. This is an essential part of like your website. It has to be the like your reception area was in 1997. I mean, it's got to be open. It's got to be welcoming. You got to make sure that you're got all kinds of ways that people can see that you're willing to help. And many times they just won't do it. And if you're listening to this podcast and you've got a phone tree and somebody can't get to a human being within 30 seconds, right? Rip out the phone, right? Just don't do it, right? That'll just put up a bot on your website. That'll terrorize me. I will never do business. That's about my threshold, about 30 seconds on a phone tree, right? And if I don't know your last name or I misspell it and it doesn't go to a human being, right? You're terrorizing me. I'm just not going to do work with you because you're not smart enough to understand how to fix a simple program like that. And then it's all on customer experience. Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot, talks constantly about your biggest competitive advantage isn't what you sell, it's how you sell it. That customer experience is super important, which plays into the phone tree, the emailing, the customer marketing, all that important stuff. And the last thing is a reliance on data, right? You have to make sure that you have good data, they're reporting good data, so that you can improve the ratios as you go. And those are important things to lean into. Global pandemics accelerate the trends that are already in place, right? So how long have you been doing Zoom and Google Hangout and video stuff, Josh?
I mean, we started using this immediately from the time we launched this business, but we still had some face-to-face meetings with local customers. But we were already talking to customers outside of Minnesota, and we were heavily relying on Google Meet and Zoom for all of those meetings. But
why did you do it like that? Why did you do it that way?
Well, because listen, you advise and invest in a lot of startup companies. If you had invested and were an official advisor for SalesReach, and I called you up and said, hey, Dan, I'm going to go spend a whole bunch of money to hop on a plane and talk to this customer that might bring me 20 seats on my platform, you'd say, absolutely not. You're crazy. Why are you doing that? Technology solves for a lot of things. Why aren't you using those technologies? And this is where you and I relate. This is why I love you so much, is because both of us, for the longest time now, have been looking for ways to use technology for good and to use technology to our benefit and to advance things and to use them in ways that take away the need to do things that are just honestly stupid, right? Like, I don't need to be jumping on a plane. I don't even need to be driving from downtown Minneapolis to Minnetonka, Minnesota during my day to have a meeting. I don't need to do any of that because this is just as meaningful as that meeting is going to be in my mind. So that's why we went all in with it when COVID hit, it didn't
It's
change
smart.
much.
The reason you do it is you're a smart guy. You're a good entrepreneur, right? You listed all the reasons: the expense, the time, the intimacy. Like, it sounds like you're sitting on the other side of the desk with me. Anybody who now drives around and spends 40 minutes going from one customer to the next is crazy, right? That is never coming back, right? If you go to visit somebody, there has to be explicit reason and need, because it's better for you, it's better for the customer, it's better for your efficiency, right? And I have a blog article, 20 things to end in 2021. One of them is getting on a plane to start a relationship. After we have a relationship, if you want to meet me, I'll fly anywhere, right? I'll drive anywhere, right? If in fact, that's what you require to do business, because the thing about 2021 is people like people. And we have all this technology and use it for either good or for evil. I feel like I'm like a superhero, right? You have this great responsibility, but maybe a Marvel comic or something like that, where you can use it to help more people, or you can use it for like traditional reasons. The reason we got on planes back in like 2003 is because we didn't have a choice, right? We didn't have the technology that we had today. The internet wasn't as robust as it is today. You didn't really have a choice, right? But there's been huge changes. The website that I look to a lot is www.hubspot/industry-data. And Kip and John Dick did a really smart thing. They started aggregating data from 95,000 customers starting at the beginning of 2020. And now you can go to that website. It's publicly facing. You can see the impact of it by region, by size of company, by industry, in aggregate of all these. And what you see is an emphasis on digital. What you see is more people, right, moving towards the inbound revolution as a way of engaging, getting visibility. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that feel almost embarrassed that 2020 was the best year of their business. They're like, no, Dan, I know people are suffering. I know lots of people are worried about their job, but right, because of our website presence, right, we did great. We got more of the people we wanted. We like caught up to them more quickly. We engaged with them more quickly. We were able to determine whether they were a good fit. We would tell them early, no, you're not a good fit for us. This is why. You go over and talk to somebody else. Like making a recommendation of a competitor is it's chapter 26 in the Inbound Organization book. It's hard. Right? It's probably the hardest thing, I think, in sales in 2021, where it's not a good fit, but the customer's still interested. You might be able to retrofit into it, but you're like, you know what? It's better if you go after to another, go to Pardot or Marketo, because you're just better suited for that particular technology. And the customer's appreciative, you're appreciative. And I think it's a better win-win for everybody.
This is so great, Dan. So I'm going to go back a little bit here, and then I've got some hot takes that I got to get out of you here, because I know that there's a couple things here that I can't wait to hear your response to. And I know I only have a limited amount of time with you here today, but anyone listening, you're hearing some common themes from previous episode. I don't know how many times Dan has said the word help. Hopefully there's no one having a drinking game to the word helping, because you're under the table at this point, right? These are things that so many guests have said, right? And I want you to understand that for the most of them, where they first heard that and learned that was this guy right here, was the work that he was doing with the founders of HubSpot to redefine how we should approach people, how marketing teams should work to, bring information to their prospects, how they should identify a solid lead, how they should be supporting sales along the way. All of these things HubSpot started talking about years and years and years ago. And just now, it's amazing how long it took for those things to start becoming commonplace, right? You coined the word Smarketing. You took ownership for that. I personally know some people that aren't super happy about that word, which always cracks me up.
I know,
hate that
they
word,
hate
but it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm trying to evangelize buyer enablement, and people are like, what are you talking about? What is this buyer enablement business? Let's just go back to sales acceleration and sales enablement. Why do we need another word? Because words are fun, right, Dan? Words are fun. But here's where I want to get to before I lose you today. Let's get to some of these Dan Tyre hot takes. First one, what is a commonly held belief in B2B sales that you passionately disagree with?
For years, people said there's such a thing as a born salesperson, right? You are a born salesperson, Josh, and that's just horseshit. I've seen thousands of accidental salespeople, super smart people. I wrote a blog article on the HubSpot blog, blog.hubspot.com, sales/love your sales career, that talks about thousands, tens of thousands of people who found sales and then fell in love with it because it's really helping.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is going to be a fun one for you. What should everyone in B2B marketing stop doing?
All right. Never connect with me on LinkedIn and then send me stupid stuff about what you do, right? That is horrible. It is worse than spam email, right? It's happened to me 4 times today. I'm like, really? You are going to ask me to connect and then you're going to send me stupid stuff? That is worse than spamming me. That should be outlawed. It does violate LinkedIn's terms of service, right? You don't realize I will never do business with you. I will put you on a slide in front of tens of thousands of people, and I'll make sure that everybody understands that you're an evil person, right? And I think, especially for technical folks, they don't understand the implications of what they're doing. They don't realize that that is way outdated and violates the terms of service and should never be done in 2021.
100%. I hope everybody heard that one. What should everyone start doing right
All
now?
right. So get inbound certified, right? HubSpot Academy, inbound sales certified. Buy the Inbound Organization book on Amazon. Jeff Bezos is not my friend now. I think he discounted to like $10 a book. So it's super inexpensive. If you need bulk copies, Inbound Organization, right? Start understanding what your mission is. Right. In 2021, people like to buy from mission-driven companies, right? Your mission is not to make a lot of money. Your mission is the social responsibility that you do in the universe and ways that you can support that for your customers, your partners, and throughout your ecosystem.
I love that. I love that. Dan, we've talked about so many things in here. There's just too many things to unpack, and I can't thank you enough for being on here. But given all these things that we've talked about, right, what are some actionable tactics that sellers and any team responsible for revenue can start doing to be more successful right now?
All right. So a couple of things. Number one, make sure you have a plan for the entire year. All my portfolio companies have a 2021 plan, right? With revenue expectations, with expenses expectations, profitability or loss, right? Underneath that, I want to make sure that we understand the headcount, right? Recruiting people in 2021 is a little bit different. Right? If you're looking for a top 2%er, that means you're going to have to go through 100 resumes to get just 2 folks. So you got to plan ahead, right? 90% of business is preparation. And if you have that financial plan, you're way ahead of the game. Number 2, document your sales process. Understand who your ideal customer profile is. Understand who your personas are. Understand how you engage with those at the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, at the end of the funnel. Number 3, bear hug your customers. Right? I tell everybody, call 2 customers today. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, pick up the phone and call them. And they're like, on the phone? And I'm like, yeah, you call them on the phone. They're like, why? I'm like, number 1, you thank them for the business. Do you like getting a check from those guys every month? Do you like when they pay their bill? And they're like, yeah. Well, then tell them that. Number 2, say, this is my cell phone. And if we ever have a curveball or something that you don't understand, call me personally. Right? I'm your executive sponsor. Just let me know. And I'll figure it out. Number 3, right? I'm going to check in at least once every 6 months. And I'm going to make sure that we have this conversation so that we can grow together over the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. One other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, I've kind of been on a soapbox myself lately, talking about what's really separating salespeople right now today. And one of the things that I've been really focusing on is something that I'm hoping people are picking up on. Dan, I'm not going to ask your age, but what I'm going to say is I'm 40 years old. You are older than me, and you have about 15 or 16 more jobs than I do, and you have energy for days. And one thing I've been telling people is that when people get on a Zoom call with you, you got to be there to entertain them. You have to bring the energy. If you can somehow be the one Zoom call they had that day that wasn't horribly depressing, where they didn't want to have their camera on and they didn't even want to be there and they weren't even paying attention, you're going to be a step ahead of many, like 90% of the sales professionals out there right now. Developing your skills in a video selling environment is mission critical. But what are some of the other skills that you're seeing that are separating salespeople today?
All right. First of all, I'm only 35, so don't give me that old man stuff. I'm only kidding. I'm 62 years old. I'm a 62-year-old millennial. Now, I relate to these Gen Z and these millennial people because, first of all, anybody who says Gen Z or millennials are lazy are just stupid, angry, old people, right? Because that's not the case. This whole new generation is awesome. Leaning in, doing the right stuff, social responsibility early in their career, smart, helpful. We grew HubSpot on it, all of our portfolio companies, right? We take the best person possible, right? But this age discrimination, my daughter Sally goes, why do you old people need to always put a name to it? It's just what it is. It's just like what it is. And I'm like, okay, Sally, that's smart. I'm going to use that in my next podcast. I think everybody should have listening skills. Right? Strong listening skills. In a sales process, you only talk 10% of the time. The key is understanding which questions to ask. Number two, they should have business skills, right? They should understand how the sales process and sales motion fits into the bigger picture. That's another advantage of niching. Professional services and manufacturing and healthcare, they're slightly different, and really understanding how that works is very, very important. And number three, you have to be responsive. In the old days, responsive was I'd call you back at the end of the day. Now responsive is you got 5 minutes, right? If I don't call you back within 5 minutes, right? I picked up the phone on the second ring when you called me today, Josh. Why? Because you're Josh, right? I know I had an event with you today. I wanted to make sure that we quickly got the information that you needed. And that's what it's like being a salesperson in 2021.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Last question for you, Dan. Last question for you. There was recently an article, McKinsey wrote an article. They interviewed buyers in the B2B space, and they asked them specifically, they said, sales has changed a lot in the last handful of months because of COVID. Your interactions with salespeople have also changed because of this. Looking at the way you used to interact with those vendors and looking at the way you're now working with them, they asked them, do you want it to go back to the way it used to be if COVID were to go away tomorrow, or do you want it to stay the way it is now? Over 80% of the people that were asked that question said that they prefer their interactions with sales professionals the way they are now versus the way they were prior to COVID. Now, I'm sure you've been studying this same sort of stuff right now, right? What are you seeing with buyers that is, what they want that is different or the same from what was before?
Yeah. So first of all, most of it happens online. Buyers are smart. They know what they need. They want a website that defines their issues and needs. When they come to the website, they have to see information that says, oh, that guy, Josh, he gets my kind of company. He understands what I'm trying to do. He is part of my community or tribe. Number two, salespeople need to be responsive. Right? That means you have to have your CRM hooked up to Slack so that when somebody pings you, you can get right back to them. Number three, you've got to be professionally persistent. You're never going to get Dan Tyre in the first email, even you, right? You're going to have to send 2, 3, usually 4. The statistics or sciences underlying 4 calls to get a conversation. And then in that conversation, you better be prepared, right? If you show up and do general discovery, in the old days, I'd be like, Josh, tell me about you and your company. Now I show up and say, Josh, I see you're in Minneapolis. I see you're scaling up a company. You've raised $1.5 million. You have 4 people on your company. You're on version 4.5. And it looks like, based on your website, you got at least 30 customers. And now what's going through your brain when I say that?
Saying, wow, you're doing a lot of research on it.
Exactly. You're the man, Tyre. Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, what are your 3 biggest challenges in 2021? I want to know what's top of mind, are your biggest hairballs, your biggest difficulties, the biggest thing that you need to scale. And in that regard, right, you should be stroking your chin going, okay, this is a smart guy. He did his homework. He knows the right questions to ask. And this is the kind of person that I want to surround myself with.
Yeah.
Right. And it works very, very well. The ancillary to that is if I can't help you, I'm like, okay, Josh, that's very interesting. I'm not your guy. And sometimes people will go, what? I'm like, I'm not your guy. I only work with companies in Arizona, Utah, and California, not in like St. Louis or Minneapolis. And you're like, will you make an exception? I'm like, no. The reason I work with those people, or sometimes I'll say it depends, right? The problem is the time zone. The problem is we have to build this trust. The problem is we have to accelerate the process. What you really need, let me recommend my buddy Josh Fedie. He's as good as I am. He understands this process. I'll make the connection, and then you can go on solving the problem you don't have to worry about. And when you do that, people very much appreciate it. And I've done that probably, 20 times in 2020. And each time people say, oh my gosh, you were right. There's so much better fit. That is perfect for me. Thank you so much. And that helps boost my credibility in the business community. And it's the right thing to do.
I want to tell one quick story here before I lose you. It's important to me that you hear this story. Number one, before I get into the story, I'll tell you this. The biggest criticism I get as a podcast host is from people telling me that I need to let my guests talk more, right? I like to talk. I like to tell stories. I think I figured out the secret. You need to have Dan Tyre on. If you have Dan Tyre on, he's going to do all the talking for you. He's just going to get that taken care of. So I love that. But I wanted to tell you this story. I think that you personally, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm giving you too much credit, and I don't want you to feel like I'm giving you too much credit. I think you deserve
You can never
this
give
credit.
me too much credit. In my Hubspot, we have the culture code. It's called HEART. And the first letter is H, and you're supposed to be humble. And my H is lowercase, right? I don't have that same kind of thing that the Dharmesh and Brian have, right? You can say as much nice things about me as you'd like. You can spread it all over social media. You can even call my daughter, son, and my wife and tell them how great I am. That'd be nice.
You specifically put me in a position to succeed in the environment we're in right now, and here's how you did it. When we met together 3.5 years ago, when I told you the germ of the idea I had and what I wanted to build, and I wanted to hear what Dan Tyre thought about it, and Dan Tyre thought it was cool enough that I just couldn't let that bone go, right? I was a dog with a bone. I was going to make this thing happen. I raised the money. We built the platform, and I remember I reached out to you, and I said, Dan, I did it. I built it. I can't believe it. I want to give you a demo. This was way early on. And you said, yeah, that's fine. Grab some time. Here's my link. Grab some time in my calendar. Give me a demo of your product. And I get you on the phone. I told my lead investor, I'm giving Dan Tyre a demo. I can't believe this is going to be the biggest day ever. And I gave you that demo. And I recorded it because I knew you were going to give me some advice. And I wanted to make sure to absorb that advice because sometimes it's hard to hear it when you're going through it. So I give you the demo. You were a perfect student. You sat and listened. You didn't interrupt me. You let me go through it. And at the very end of it, you gave me the biggest scoop of tough love that I have ever witnessed, I've ever experienced in my life. It started out something like, is that how you give a demo? And I remember sitting back and going, well, no, I wanted to show you the product. I'm all excited about the product. And you said to me, you said, that's the problem though. You're always going to be excited about your product, but that's not how you give a proper demo. And you took me through the boot camp, and I had never sold a SaaS-based product in my life. I hear that in my head still to this day. Every time I get on a call to give someone a demo, I remember the time that Dan Tyre turned to me and said, is that how you give a demo? Right? And then just taught me everything I needed to know in 10 minutes. Here's what happened next, Dan. We got off that call. You destroyed my day. I cried. I went through all the emotions that somebody goes through. I re-listened to the video. I decided you were the biggest jerk I've ever met in my life. I decided that, there's no way I should ever talk to you again. And then I started re-listening and going, oh my God, he was so right. He was so right. And the ability for me to listen to that criticism, to take that criticism, and then transform that into something good, that's something that not many people are willing to do from your position, to give someone the tough love and the education that they actually need. And you gave that to me at an incredibly critical point in my business. And had you not taught me how to sell a SaaS-based product over the phone, COVID would have been horrible for my business. Instead, we have been growing during COVID. It has been banner months for us, and it's because we're effective in a digital space selling our product and asking the right questions. So I'm giving you all the credit for that, buddy. I can't thank you enough for that.
I'm not going to take all the credit. I'm going to take a little bit of credit, 2% for being blunt, right? And thank you for saying that. You and all entrepreneurs, if you need to get a hold of me, dantyre.com. And to the extent of my bandwidth, I'm available, right? And happy to give you the benefit of my experience.
I love it. Dan, thank you so much for being on the Buyer Enablement Podcast. It's an honor. I can't wait for this to hit the world. I hope everybody found value. If you're a listener, thank you for coming back. Make sure to hit that follow button so you get alerts when we go live with our episodes. And again, Dan, seriously, thank you. I hope everybody re-listens to this because there was so much value in this one that they have to. You have to re-listen at least 3 times, I think. So thank you for being on here.
Thanks, Josh. Nice to see you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.